Welcome to Business Talk here on Business Tech, where we bring you the latest insights and all the innovative solutions driving growth in South Africa's economy. As always, I'm your host, Michael Avery, and today we've got a topic that I think is absolutely critical for all businesses across the spectrum, and that is access to capital. Joining us today to shed light on what is a very groundbreaking solution is Connie Bloem, the co-founder and MD of Mesh.trade, which is Africa's first crypto asset service provider, or CASP as they call it. Mesh.trade is using blockchain tech to fill some critical gaps in traditional capital markets by delivering tokenized financial assets. So we're going to be exploring how this new approach helps unlock liquidity for business and provide that much needed access to capital. Connie, always a great pleasure chatting to you, and welcome to the show. Firstly, if you look at South Africa, we're on this new sustained path of optimism since the government of national unity, 200 days load shedding free. But I think many medium-sized businesses in particular still face difficulties accessing capital. In your view, why do traditional capital markets and the private credit sector often fall short when serving this segment of the market?
Well, in the traditional markets, generally we do speak about how onerous the requirements are to list your company. But when you're in that size of a corporate company, it is onerous, but there is ways and means for you to get to the market. You can get to the listing. But what I'm looking at here is what I'd like to define as the missing middle, or the entrepreneurial class within the South African market. And we all know it's the entrepreneurs that really drive us forward, that create the future of the South African economy. So why is it so challenging for these companies to go out to the market and raise capital? Firstly, they're not as big as the corporates are yet. They're in their scale-up phase. They're growing. They're still acquiring clients. They're still acquiring people. And therefore, they do need a lot of capital. They need it at a short term, and they need it at a price that their growing business can afford. And generally, what is available for these kind of companies? Well, loans are available for them, but it's getting harder and harder in the market to obtain these kind of loans. So they have been effectively being sidestepped in the economy, sidestepped in the banking world to easily and effectively raise their capital. Now, can't they go to private equities? Can't they go to VC kind of firms? Yes, absolutely you can, but that takes time. Generally, the average capital raise cycle takes you about a year from start to end. And if you're a growing business and you have projects to deliver, you cannot wait a year to reach capital. So therefore, there's a massive gap in the market currently to serve these growing businesses, to serve the businesses that are really hungry for capital, but also there to drive the economic growth within South Africa.
Yeah, and I think that segment of business, more mid-market, is growing and investing behind the curve, and is really going to be quite capital hungry over the next few years to take advantage of the opportunities, because I do see many opportunities emerging in the South African economy. If you're an entrepreneur and you want to be invested or invested behind that expected uptick, how does Mesh.trade close the gaps for you? What makes your platform different from something that's a little bit more traditional, like going to the JSE?
So what makes us different is that we're sitting with a whole host of capital markets experience. So my team comes out of capital markets. We understand the capital markets. We understand how interest works and cash works and money works and how companies grow. And we've taken this knowledge and we've combined it with compliance. We've combined it with regulations, and we've combined it with really forward-looking technology. So yes, we are based on blockchain. And we've combined these elements to create an elegant flow for entrepreneurs to access the market again and raise capital directly from the client, from their investor base, which is very short. Our current clients we are serving in under 3 weeks, we get them out into market, and they raise capital directly from a wide investor base. So everything from institutional investors straight through to retail clients. We have them onboarded onto our platform and ready to invest as well. So effectively, we compress this market into elegant flow, and it is fully regulatory compliant, but it is straight in the digital age, or what I call the finance 3.0 age.
I think you're so right, Connie. We've operated on systems that were fit for purpose in the 20th century for far too long in the 21st century. I think we've got the technology, we've got the tools to disintermediate, to make processes more efficient, to your point, to make it more elegant flow. I love that phrase. Maybe you could just explain how that works, how the blockchain technology, and I think most people by now have their understanding of distributed ledger and that kind of thing. But how does this, along with tokenization, enable you to provide businesses with a way to raise capital that traditional models just don't?
I think to answer your question, it is the combination of technology as well that we use. Because on the one side, we do have blockchain technology, but also it's a platform. So as you mentioned, it is that digital age, that is that digital connection between people that we've compressed into elegant flow. But the blockchain is core to this. This is the reason why we can create a capital markets that is simple to access, easy to use, and transparent. Now, what this blockchain technology does for us is that we can tokenize financial assets. And what this is that it makes it cheaper and easier to transact. It makes it quicker, more transparent. But I think what is one of the biggest things that are coming through is that we lower that barrier of minimum investments. So generally with these kind of assets, you need to have like R1 million minimum value to invest in them. And we found a compliance and technology-driven way of bringing down that minimum. And currently, we are trading assets in what is traditionally known as fractions, with minimum values that are less than 5,000 Rand, which makes it incredibly accessible. But on the other side as well, there is a liquidity component as well. So if you buy this asset, can I sell it in the secondary market if I no longer want it, if I want my cash back? And having it on a tokenized form, we actually open up the market to more investors being able to access it and easier trading mechanisms with lower fees. So you have more greater potential for that secondary market liquidity, which makes for a very stable financial markets. And I think that is contrary to popular belief, because so much in the media we've heard about like crypto assets in general being unsafe or unstable or like very volatile is the word that people use. That is very much ring fenced towards what I look at as being your crypto assets or your cryptocurrency kind of use cases. But remember, these are companies. These are tokens backed by bonds and equities and so forth. So they trade a lot more stable, and putting up this layer of technology on top of it, we've actually created access, but also stability in the market.
And I think that, the important distinction here is to understand that when you tokenize an asset, you're basically just creating a digital representation of something that really exists underlying that. So a digital representation of equity, a digital representation of bonds. I've even seen international examples of streaming, which is an old-fashioned way of mining companies reselling unmined resources in the ground, say gold, for example, and then you do a streaming transaction where you sell at a set price the unmined resources. But I mean, you could do that in a tokenized fashion as well, couldn't you?
Yes, absolutely. We actually are looking at a couple of what you define as the streaming kind of use cases, which I find is incredibly exciting, because what we can do here is innovation. We bring innovation back into the capital markets of having a traditional financial assets where I raise capital that may be paying out in gold. Or we are looking at the energy industry and saying, okay, there's a potential for wheeling in the energy industry, which is very topical currently within South Africa. But what if we could combine that with a credit note that pays off or only lives for a certain amount of time? That's interesting. That's create potential in the markets where we can have independent power producers now being able to capitalize on the infrastructure that they've put in place. Or if you have a bit more, and this is a bit of a reach, if you have a bit more energy being produced by those lovely solar panels on your roof, can you maybe sell that off into the grid one day?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much potential exactly to innovate. I can think of ways we could probably innovate around our water infrastructure and ensuring that some of those future financial flows could attract quite a few solutions into helping fix much of the water crisis, as many people might be impacted, especially here in Johannesburg, by daily water outages at the moment. But I think, Connie, many people might still be cautious about blockchain. And I think because of the fact that when you think of blockchain, you think of cryptocurrencies, you think of all the scandals, and I almost liken it to the first example of the use of electricity. And it's a good thing we didn't demonstrate electricity with the electric chair, because I don't think many people would have bought into it. Fortunately, it was a light bulb, so people saw the value in it. What assurances can you give to individuals watching this that this technology is safe?
That's such a fantastic question, because being responsible and being secure are elements that are core to the capital markets, core to working with capital and finance and investors. And when I look at this industry that we've created, I can only give you examples of how the trust has evolved in the market. So first of all, we mentioned earlier that Mesh is a regulated entity. We're a crypto asset service provider. So that means that our regulator within South Africa say that they're confident in this technology, and they're so confident that they would put out a regulatory category and not just stop that trading in the market, but actually create place for us to conduct our business in a trusted and transparent manner. Therefore, first use case, regulation. The second one is very interesting. We're hearing a lot in the news about real-world asset tokenization. It's a bit of a buzzword at this stage. But big banks such as, or big asset managers rather, such as BlackRock and JP Morgan have partnered to put out a whole host of crypto-backed ETFs in the market. And they're also tokenizing a lot of their own assets. And most of the big banks, most of the central banks have blockchain-based projects or working groups or have something in production already where they're utilizing this technology. That means that there's widespread adoption of the technology, and it's not just segregated to a corner of the internet where we played with leopard printed bored apes. This is not just something for the Gen Zs, but for everyone to get involved in, because it's a valid technology to move our markets forward.
Indeed, I think it's exciting beyond what we've already begun to realize in terms of opening up our capital markets, and then desperately needed to overcome so many of those friction points, connecting capital to good ideas and to entrepreneurs who can drive the economy forward. And really, any great society economy is built on that basis. And our history was built on the foundations of the great mining finance houses. It's why Johannesburg exists at the end of the day. Maybe you could just share some stories around how Mesh.trade has helped make a tangible difference for South African business, because you've been in operation for a while now. I certainly know some of the background, but won't you share with our audience the one highlight for you so far?
I love the entrepreneurial segments as I spoke. So I think the most relevant use case here is for an asset called the Morse Bond. So the Morse is a network of schools, and they raise capital to continuously build this network of schools. So they came to Mesh and said, we want our community involved in this capital raise. We need 100 million rand to further our business, to buy more schools, to send more kids to school, to educate more people. And their entire reason for existence is that they're passionate for mother tongue driven education, which I think is also a fantastic cause, given a lot of the conversations in South Africa around the Bela legislation that's coming forth and so forth. And we all are passionate about education, because that drives our next generation of entrepreneurs to the market as well. So when they came to us, we looked at this asset, and we knew that institutional players are absolutely needed. So how can we bring in the institutional and wealth managers and discretionary investors? But because they also have a big community drive, how can we include that community as well? So we took them through a public offering, which I think is one of the best use cases on Mesh at this stage. And we raised the full 100 million, and we achieved the 17% retail component in that asset, which firstly is unheard of. We look at some of the current IPOs going on the market, and there's a lot of criticism that there's not inclusion of retail in those raises. And here we've proven that the retail segment is strong. and they are capable, and they understand bonds, they understand complex instruments. So 17% is fantastic. But further to that, the success didn't end there for the most, because they're now deploying their capital, but they're seeing 10% on secondary market activity on platform as well. And this is important to note because secondary market, having liquidity on your asset is incredibly important. It's incredibly important for our entrepreneurs that are growing their businesses to create a strong brand, because if you want to raise capital again, you want people to keep on supporting your business by trading your asset. But also for our investors, that is important, because if any of them want to exit their position, there is a liquid secondary market to take up. And this is important for retail investors and your institutional investors alike. And 10% secondary market is unheard of in any bond market at this stage. Currently, if you were to draw any global records of secondary market activity, you're generally turning around like a 2 to 4% in that space. So just by this one use case, we're showing that opening up the capital markets is creating large-scale growth, and it's creating large-scale access to more clients. Now, this is not just an example of one. We have more assets coming out. We have more entrepreneurs coming to our platform to do so. And we're inviting more of them along as well, because we want the success story to reverberate through the South African market.
I can just think while you're talking about this of the use cases in infrastructure, for example. I mean, I was at the recent Institute of Retirement Funds Africa conference in Cape Town recently. They had a great panel on public-private partnerships in infrastructure, and an asset manager who said, our challenge is obviously liquidity. Sadly, one of the big pension funds replaced them and wanted to liquidate a position that they had in a water infrastructure project, but that takes time. And he said it took them about a year to unwind and exit. But I think if we bring this kind of innovation and grow a secondary market around it as well, create more liquidity, then you alleviate some of those concerns as well. Connie, always a great pleasure to chat to you. Just as a final question, I mean, someone wants to get their hands dirty with this now, and how all of this works. Do they just get on to Mesh.trade? Is it all there?
Yes, you go onto our website that is at www.mesh.trade. And you just click on that lovely Become a Issuer on Mesh button and fill in the form. And we will be taking you from there. The team will be in contact, and we will make sure that your business can get access to the market.
That's incredible. It's like a one-click capital raising. It's just wonderful to see how innovation drives markets forward, really. Well, that wraps up our conversation. Connie Bloem, thank you very much, MD and co-founder of Mesh.trade. To our viewers, thank you for tuning in to Business Talk on businesstech.co.za. If you're a business looking for capital solutions, it might be time to explore new avenues like Mesh.trade. Until next time, stay informed and keep pushing forward. I'm Michael Avery.